speaker, Anthony Wynyard. Till death us do part. Till death us do part, Anthony Wynyard.
For most of us, there are 2 days in our lives when we'll get the most attention from our family and our friends. Our wedding day and the day of our funeral. And it's amazing how much these 2 days have in common. Now, marriage, statistically, is quite temporary. You may have been at a wedding before where you're thinking, this marriage is doomed, I should have kept the toaster for myself. Now, unfortunately, most first marriages fail. So for those of you that are not yet married, I don't know how many there are in there, but really, it's just a test run, it's just a rehearsal. You're just kind of getting things right for the second and third and fourth. In our lives, I mean, especially for those of you that have been married more than once, so the reality is you're going to be sending your friends and family multiple wedding invites over the course of your life. They'll only ever receive one funeral invite. Funerals are forever. When you're dead, it's reality. You might be at a funeral thinking, this death will last forever. Bob will always be dead, for better or worse. Funerals are reality. You're not going to change your mind, you're not going to contact a resurrection lawyer to see if you can renegotiate the contract. You're always going to be dead. Now, weddings are a real inconvenience for a lot of people. They're always on Saturdays, aren't they? Taking a valuable day off in the weekend. You miss the footy, and if it is a wedding during the week, you have to use one of your days' holidays. Now, funerals, on the other hand, almost always midweek. So it means you get an extra day off. Because if you ask your boss for a day off for a funeral, he's not going to say no, is he? Now, when you go to a funeral, and it's normally always people are laughing and chatting, and after the end of wake, and they're telling stories about how great the deceased was, and generally having a good time. There's no awful band or idiotic DJ, and no one wants to hear one of those. You don't have to dance. It's normally people are just kind of catching up, and you're not under pressure, so there's no expectations to be having a great time as such. Now, weddings, on the other hand, there's huge expectations, and invariably they disappoint. You sit through a ceremony that seems to last for days, and you're sitting on a table with people, you have no idea who they are, and hoping you're never going to see them again, and you have to dance. Now, the average funeral is pretty expensive, but it's only a few grand. Now, the average wedding is crazily extravagant and typically costs about the same price as a small house up north. At weddings, there's all kinds of pressures on the couple because there's TV shows, there's blogs, there's magazines, there's everyone giving them different advice. And you end up with couples spending £150 on a cake topper. Who needs a cake topper that costs £150? And brides are pressured to feel if they don't get a dress that costs the equivalent of a used car, their day's not going to be special. There's just so much pressure, and most couples end up just being completely stressed, and the whole day can just become a bit of a nightmare. Now, you may be thinking, well, actually, I don't actually enjoy funerals. And I'm not saying that funerals are always better than weddings, obviously not. I mean, clearly you're not going to enjoy the funeral of someone that's died young, or from some horrific disaster, or the death of your spouse, unless it's one of those first marriages not going so well. I'm talking about the natural order of things type funeral where they've had a pretty good innings. Now, for those of you that don't enjoy funerals, you might be, I'll give you some food for thought about funerals. I mean, yeah, have you ever stopped to consider, why is it that we put corpses in hearses? I mean, do they really need the leg room? Or why is it that we put them in the back of fancy estate cars? Is that some implied dignity by sleeping in the back of an estate car? Now I've decided that when I go, I'm not going to go in a hearse. I'm going to be in an ice cream van, playing the theme tune to Benny Hill, doing 50 all the way to the cemetery, with all the guests forced to put their foot down to keep up. When we get to the cemetery, I'm not going to be cremated, I'm going to be boiled. They're going to have to lay me down on a giant spring. The spring will be put underground and there'll be some fake grass put on top of the spring. There'll be motion sensors all around. Should anyone spend more than 5 minutes at my graveside moping, the sensors will be tripped, my skeleton will jump out of the photo. There'll be music from Thriller, with lights flashing in my eyes, and a small, tinny speaker in my mouth will say, "Fellow Toastmasters and most
Madam Timekeeper, may I have 1 minute, please?